I'd like to welcome today with us on the show Judge Bruce Cohen, who is on the bench in Arizona. Judge Cohen, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you with us. I appreciate so much you being here. Judge Cohen has a wealth of information to bring us about his own experience thinking about and working on family law cases, and also I've just recently learned some interesting insight to bring in terms of international views on this, since he's been working with international, I don't know, I guess we'd say programs on trying to understand domestic situations worldwide. So welcome. And I think we just start maybe with you telling us a little bit about yourself, and maybe I think people are always interested in how you got to the bench, what you did before this.
All right. Well, I graduated from law school in the dark ages, 1981. And we used to take our notes with a chisel and a stone.
I bet.
But I very quickly gravitated towards family law early in my career. And by the second or third year of my career practicing law, I was working almost exclusively in the area of family law. Did that for about 24 years. And then in 2005, got appointed by the Arizona governor at the time, Janet Napolitano, to become a judge of the Superior Court, where I've been for the last 19 plus years.
And is the Superior Court, just because we call them different things in different states, is that the sort of entry-level district court? We'd call it district court in Colorado, or is that higher level?
It's the trial court.
Okay.
We don't deal with, on the criminal side, we don't do misdemeanors or lesser crimes. We don't do small claims. Those are done in the justice court. So this is the trial court level.
Okay. And when you first were appointed as a judge, or for how many of the years have you done domestic versus rotation into other areas?
After practicing almost 24 years in family law, I spent the first 6 years on the bench on a family court assignment. We are the fourth largest court system in the country, behind LA County, Cook County in Chicago, and Harris County in the Houston area. So we're number 4 in size. We have 165 judicial officers, and that's the Phoenix metropolitan area. And as a result, because we are so large and deal with such a high volume of cases, we're broken down into departments. And as you serve on the bench, you end up serving in all the different departments, but usually about 3 to 4 year stints in each. I was the exception to that rule. I spent the first 6 years on family court, 4 of them as the associate presiding judge back then, largely because of my passion for family law. So I wanted to stay. Then I spent 4 years on a criminal assignment, 3 years on a juvenile court assignment, a year on civil, and then I returned to family court as the presiding judge, where there are 44 judges that work within that department. I was the presiding judge for a 4-year period. And now in my last 2 years, I'm back on a criminal court assignment. As we make these changes, there are unintended consequences. Suddenly you have this push towards increasing equal time and all, but maybe you don't have a circumstance in that family where the parents are of equal skills or of equal availability to the child. So we're pushing a policy, but maybe it doesn't fit for every family. We then have, well, what about domestic violence cases and child abuse cases, and particularly domestic violence cases? Now, I could tell you, because I'm old enough to remember, up until early 1980s, at least in Arizona, if police showed up at a house where there was a claim of domestic violence going on, and when they have the parties come to the door, nobody wants police intervention, they would treat it as a private family matter and they would leave, even if they saw evidence of there being domestic violence. In the early 80s, we changed the law in Arizona that if there is any evidence that domestic violence has occurred, somebody is going to get arrested and spend the night in jail. So not only do they not leave, they're going to separate the parties involved. Well, as we move towards equal time, there were unintended consequences about what we do in cases where there is domestic violence. So here's my point in a very long-winded way, and I apologize for
No,
that.
no, no.
Um, is we have different categories of cases. You have cases where there has been domestic violence or child abuse or substance abuse or mental health issues. And when I say that, I mean diagnosed mental health issues. They all require individual treatment. But the average case is made up of parents who have strengths and weaknesses. And these policies should be directed towards those cases.
What challenge does that bring? I'm sure you're helping train judges now in the role and continue to support them and have seen a lot over the years. What are the struggles that these judges, all judges really bring to the bench, but even family law practitioners who join would struggle with family cases, I think, being in that seat. But what do you see from just sort of even people that are not coming with that family law experience? What's it like to be in family court as a judicial officer?
It's a real challenge. I spoke the language. I'm from the community, and I am a proud member of the family law community to this day. I still identify as being part of that community. Um, so when you haven't practiced in that area, you don't speak the language, and every area of law has their own language, their own acronyms, their own uh, ways of expressing things in shorthand. So that's one issue. It's a whole other area of law is another issue, different than what many people practice. We also, at least in Maricopa County, I think it's true in many jurisdictions around the country, we have a very high percentage of cases where neither party is represented by counsel. So when you don't have attorneys involved and the judge is new to family law, they have to be able to, the judges figure out the legal issues, the facts that they need to bring out from parties who aren't experienced at presenting their issues. There's also a lot of emotional turmoil and angst throughout the process. And lastly, there's a tendency for newer judges to get appointed in their first rotation, at least here, to a family court assignment. So they're learning how to become a judge. At
Mm.
the same time, they're learning a new area of law. At the same time, they're also addressing a very disproportionate number of people representing themselves. So there's no surprise to me whatsoever that there's a real steep learning curve involved. So I've been for the last 17 years, I do the new judge orientation for all new judges in Arizona to give them their day of training in family law, which is kind of like asking somebody to drink from a fire hose.
What do you think about how the just sort of family law is set up in terms of this idea? Because I think you're right. If we were able to somehow create more flourishing systems for the average cases that allowed people to get through it more easily, even those cases where lawyers are involved to get it through. And I mean, my own view of it is that our money system, it's just kind of a broken system where people get more money to have more adversarial cases. So it's just really hard to not try to throw all the tools on the table when you're an attorney and you're representing a parent, even if it does ultimately take longer, cost more, maybe not end up differently than it would have without all of that. But I think genuinely can hurt the children and the chances at co-parenting later. But what do you think about the bar's obligation in all this?
Well, I think um, the bar is functioning in a system that they didn't create. So I think lawyers get a bad rap. I think I'm tired of hearing about lawyers where people say, well, they want you to litigate so you could pay for the new Mercedes.
Yeah,
Most of the family law attorneys that I have been exposed to, and this is nationally, it's not just in Arizona, are really dedicated to helping people find solutions to their cases. And the good ones have plenty of cases to keep them busy.
that's true.
Um, are there outliers? Yes, but there are outliers in every profession. There are doctors that perform unnecessary medical care because it's in their financial interest to do so. There's accountants that probably do unnecessary work because they get paid by the hour and it's in their interest. That's true for the legal profession too, but as a whole, it's a profession made up of dedicated professionals trying to serve the needs of their clients. but it's their client's cases. So even a well-intentioned lawyer has to be responsive to what their client wants, not a super parent telling them this is what you're going to do. So that's one problem. Here's what we've come up with in Maricopa County, some processes that I'm very proud of. When you have two self-represented litigants and they're both before the court, we get them in for an early resolution conference, is what it's called. It's staffed by a licensed attorney who works for the court full time, is not practicing law.